There's a boy standing under a sign that says Starlight Starbright, and tonight was supposed to be the best night of his life. He just broke the record on the arcade game outside his trailer park, and everyone came out to watch him do it and they cheered. Then he ran to check the mail and there was the letter he'd been waiting for months. The college loan, rejected. He's 17 years old, he fixes other people's leaky pipes for spending money, and the world he lives in has decided exactly who he is and exactly how far he'll ever go. On the one night he did something extraordinary, the world handed him a closed door. This is The Last Starfighter, from 1984. And before the spaceships arrive, before the aliens, before any of it, this film already understands something about you. It knows what it feels like to be good at something that doesn't seem to count for anything. If you're tired tonight, this is the one. The Starlight Starbright Trailer Park in Southern California stands as one of the most lived-in places in 1980s science fiction, and the key word there is lived in. This isn't a set dressed to look like a neighborhood. There's a woman who gossips loudly from her deck, a retired couple who bicker about everything and mean none of it, and Louis, Alex's little brother, who hero worships him in the particular way only a younger sibling manages. Everyone knows your name here, and that is not entirely a good thing. Alex Rogan, played by Lance Guest with a kind of worn-down decency, has spent his whole life in this place. He's smart, he's responsible, he does the work, and he carries the specific frustration of someone who can see a bigger life from where they're standing but cannot figure out how to reach it. The arcade cabinet called Starfighter sits outside the park like a fixture, like a fire hydrant, something Alex has been feeding quarters into for years. One night he beats it, destroys the enemy command ship, posts the highest score anyone has ever posted, and the game does something no game is supposed to do. It calls for help. Enter Centauri, Robert Preston, silver-tongued and fast-talking, wearing a suit that's doing a lot of work. He built the game, except the game was never a game at all. It's a recruitment test, scattered across the universe to find the one in a million with the gift, and Alex, from this particular flea-speck trailer park in the middle of tumbleweeds and tarantulas, as Centauri puts it, is the one who answered. And here's where the film does something most people have forgotten. Alex says no. He gets to the alien base, sees the ships and the soldiers and the whole sprawling machinery of an interstellar war, meets his navigator Grig, a gentle reptilian creature with 6,000 little griglings at home and a voice full of patient calm, and then Alex looks at all of it and tells them to take him back. He didn't sign up for this. He doesn't want it. They take him back. That's not what happens in these movies. The hero is supposed to step forward. The music swells, he accepts his destiny, and the story rolls on. The Last Starfighter doesn't do that. It lets Alex go home frightened and ordinary, and it treats that choice as completely reasonable. But before going deeper, here's what I want to ask. Do you remember that Alex comes back? That the film actually lets him refuse? Tell me below if you remembered that detail, because most people who describe this movie as a simple wish-fulfillment fantasy have quietly forgotten the part where the wish says no. Back home, things are worse, and not in any metaphorical sense. There's an assassin from the Kodan Empire looking for him, his girlfriend is being followed by the android double Centauri left behind to cover Alex's absence, and his family has no idea where he's been. Then Centauri shows up, mortally wounded from taking a blast meant for Alex, and says the one thing that reframes everything: the only way to protect his family now is to go back. He wasn't chosen because he was special. He was chosen because he was useful, and that usefulness has now made everyone he loves a target. The moment he beat that high score, the universe circled his address, his mother, his brother, Maggie, all of them in danger because of something Alex didn't even know he was doing. That's the unspoken thing at the center of this film. It's not a fantasy about being recognized. It's a story about what recognition actually costs, about how being pulled out of your life, even towards something extraordinary, always leaves something behind, about the particular loneliness of being the person who has to go, standing there looking at everyone who has to stay. There's a moment that's quiet, almost throwaway, and I've never been able to shake it. Alex sits in the cockpit alone, about to fly into a battle he almost certainly won't survive, holding a photograph of his family and his friends and Maggie. The film cuts to Earth, to Maggie standing in the dark looking at the night sky, saying to no one in particular, "I love you, Alex Rogan." He can't hear it. She doesn't know he's watching. No swelling theme, no dramatic staging. Just two people separated by an unimaginable distance, who picked each other before any of this happened. And that, the film says without saying it, is what he's fighting for. Not the Star League, not the frontier, not glory, the photograph. Did you know this film carried that much weight? Or did you remember it as the one where a kid plays a video game and gets taken to space? If that scene just landed differently for you, say so below. Here's what gets missed in almost every conversation about this film. Alex doesn't become a hero because he was destined to. He becomes a hero because he runs out of alternatives. Because there is no version of staying home that keeps the people he loves safe. The universe came to him, and he can't undo that, can't put it back in the machine, can't go back to being the kid who just fixed pipes and played arcade games at night. Grig could have been a comic relief alien navigator and nothing more, but look at him clearly and he's something much more interesting than that. He has a family, 6,000 children, he says, with a quiet pride that doesn't need anyone's approval. He shows up for this fight not because he's brave in any dramatic sense, but because he's a father and a husband and a creature who understands that the things worth protecting don't protect themselves. He and Alex are not a warrior, and his sidekick. They're two people who would both rather be home, and that dynamic gives the space battles a texture you don't usually find in films like this. When they win, the feeling isn't triumph, it's relief. Something closer to surviving a thing you didn't choose than conquering one you did. Screenwriter Jonathan Bitwell said the idea came to him watching a boy play an arcade game while he was reading about King Arthur. In the old stories, the sword doesn't ask whether you want to be king, it just refuses to come out of the stone for anyone else. Centauri's colleagues in the Star League call it the Excalibur test, with a kind of exasperated familiarity, as though he's pulled this particular stunt before and gotten into trouble for it, and he has. Arthur didn't ask for the sword either. He reached for it because no one else could. That's the oldest story underneath this one, about being given something you didn't ask for at the exact moment when you're already standing under a sign that says your future has been declined. Deep in the second act, Alex and Grig sit alone together in the Gunstar, the last ship left, somewhere near the Kodan Armada, and they talk about home. Alex asks about his family. Grig tells him he has a wifeoid, choosing the word with the particular care of someone finding the closest translation for something that doesn't quite exist in the other language, and 6,000 Griglings. He delivers that number with a quiet, unperformed pride. The way people talk about their children when they've stopped needing to perform anything for anyone. Dan O'Herlihy played Grig under full reptilian prosthetics, which meant nobody on set could read his face during filming, and yet the warmth still comes through, in the voice, in the stillness, in the patience of a creature who has decided to be useful in a situation he didn't choose. There is a story that O'Herlihy wore his costume on the drive home one night, which tells you something about the kind of set this was. What matters about Grig, though, is what he isn't. He's not the wise old mentor who has spent his life waiting for the chosen hero to arrive. He's not fired up with the glory of battle. He's a navigator who had a good life, who had responsibilities to the Star League, who showed up on the day everything went wrong, and found one ship, one gunner, and no alternative. He's here not because he's brave, but because he's present, and being present, as it turns out, is most of what bravery actually is. Think about the other starfighters, the ones who died in the Kodan attack before Alex even got back. We barely see them. A row of ships on the landing pad, then gone, then wreckage. Each of them had a navigator. Each navigator had something waiting at home. The film doesn't turn this into a memorial or a statement. It just shows you the empty hangar and lets you understand the arithmetic. Alex and Grig are the last not because they are the best, but because they happened to be elsewhere when the attack came. Survival at first is just timing. What you do with it afterward is the part that counts. Watch how he handles Alex in those early scenes aboard the ship. Alex is frightened and unpracticed. Convinced he's about to die alongside a lizard he met an hour ago for a civilization he's never heard of, and Grig doesn't argue with any of that. He doesn't give a speech about destiny or the weight of history. He just shows Alex where the controls are, narrates the countdown with the calm of someone who has done this before and knows the only way forward is through, and teaches the way a good mechanic teaches, not by inspiring, but by making the next step obvious. Underneath all of it runs this image Grig carries with him, the 6,000 Griglings at home, the wifeoid, the life below ground that is waiting. He has more at stake than Alex does, in a way. Alex is fighting because he's been backed into a corner. Grig is fighting because if he doesn't, the thing he loves most goes away. The film never makes a big moment of this. It sits there, underneath everything, the way the real reasons for anything usually do. When they finally engage the Kodan Armada, just the two of them against a command ship and its full fighter complement, and Alex triggers the Death Blossom, the weapon of absolute last resort that fires in every direction at once and burns through the ship's own power to do it. Grig doesn't protest or look afraid. He grabs the controls, holds the ship steady, and does his job. They survive, not through destiny, not because the universe had a plan, but because a navigator who had something to lose showed up and kept his hands on the wheel. That detail, 6,000 little Griglings somewhere below ground waiting for him, is never resolved. The film ends before we find out if Grig ever gets back to them, and somehow that incompleteness is exactly right. That's where the weight lives, Not in the battles or the explosions, but in that unnamed planet, below ground, where a family is waiting for someone who went out to do an impossible thing and, as far as they know, hasn't come back yet. Here is a piece of information that changes how you watch this film, and once you know it, you'll see it in every single scene Robert Preston is in. Centauri was written as Harold Hill. Harold Hill is the central character of The Music Man, a 1957 Broadway musical that became a film in 1962, and Robert Preston played him both times, winning a Tony Award for the stage version. Harold Hill is a traveling con man who rolls into small American towns, tells them they have a problem they didn't know they had, sells them the solution, pockets the money, and disappears before anyone realizes the solution doesn't work. He's charming, fast-talking, completely full of it, and somewhere underneath all of it, he believes in what he's selling just enough to be dangerous. Screenwriter Jonathan Betuel pitched it to director Nick Castle in exactly those words: The Music Man in Outer Space. Preston said he consciously brought Harold Hill's whole approach to every scene: same cadence, same gleam, same absolute certainty that audiences will follow him anywhere as long as he doesn't stop moving. Watch how Centauri operates, and you'll see it. He doesn't explain, he announces. He doesn't ask, he assumes. When Alex starts asking where they're going, Centauri deflects with the cheerful theatrical misdirection Harold Hill used to sell band instruments to a town that had no band. When Alex finally sees the truth, when the car lifts into space and the stars streak past, Centauri spreads his arms like a showman who has just pulled off the best trick of his career. Because he has. And here's the uncomfortable thing the film knows and barely admits: Centauri isn't entirely wrong to do it this way. If he had told Alex the truth at the trailer park, that an alien empire is about to destroy a civilization and that Alex's arcade scores make him the galaxy's only candidate to stop it, Alex would have slammed the door. The deception is the only way the truth gets a hearing. There's a scene most people skim past. Centauri is driving Alex back to Earth after Alex refuses the call, muttering to himself, "Little brat, I invent the game, find the kid, drag him up there, and he doesn't want to be a starfighter." He's performing irritation the way Harold Hill performs outrage when a town starts to suspect him, and then he stops the car, gets out, and hands Alex a communicator device, a way to call back should he change his mind. He mentions quietly that the game wasn't supposed to land in that trailer park at all. It was meant for Las Vegas. Fate, he calls it. Destiny. Blind chance. That moment is where the con man cracks open, just slightly. Centauri believes it. He spent his life dropping these tests across the universe, watching for the one person who has the gift, and he's found one here, of all places, in this particular nothing town, and he can't quite bring himself to leave and let the universe burn. So he gives Alex the communicator without explaining why. He just insists. Robert Preston died in 1987, 3 years after this film came out, and this was the last theatrical role of his life. He spent decades as Harold Hill, the man who promises a dream he can't quite deliver, who believes in people a little more than the evidence warrants, and he ended his career playing a version of that same character for genuinely cosmic stakes. The con works, the dream was real. The kid saved the galaxy. Harold Hill would have been delighted. While Alex is somewhere between Rylos and the Kodan Armada, another Alex is back in the trailer park. His name is Beta. He's an android, an exact physical duplicate built to cover Alex's absence so seamlessly that nobody notices the real one is gone. He fails immediately. The Beta subplot runs parallel to the space battle, and it's one of the strangest, funniest, most quietly heartbreaking things in this film. Lance Guest plays both roles, and the difference in performance is striking. Alex is worn down and specific, tired in the particular way of someone who has been doing other people's chores for so long he's forgotten what his own energy feels like. Beta is too smooth, then too stiff, then completely miscalibrated, using words he overhears from strangers across a lake and applying them to the wrong situations, too passive when he should be warm, too aggressive when he should be gentle. Maggie notices something is off immediately, in the way you would notice if the person you loved had been replaced by someone doing an impression of them. She can't name it, she just knows. At the lake, Beta tries to hold a conversation the way Alex would, grabbing lines of dialogue from other couples nearby and stitching them together in the wrong order, and it goes wrong fast. She slaps him. He stares at her with the particular blankness of a machine that has just processed an input it doesn't have a response for, and then, because there is no other option, he tells her the truth. He is not Alex. Alex is in space. The universe needed him and a copy was sent instead. She doesn't believe him until one of the alien assassins shoots him and the wound leaks green circuitry instead of blood. What makes this subplot worth taking seriously, rather than just enjoying as a comic interlude, is what it reveals about why Alex can't be replaced. Beta carries all the same data: Alex's face, his history, his address, Maggie's name, the layout of the trailer park. What he doesn't carry are the 10,000 small specific things that make Alex the person Maggie loves. The particular way he gets angry about being stuck, the way he's gentle with his brother, the way he looks at her when he thinks nobody's watching. Those things aren't Data. No copy, however technically accurate, can manufacture them. Beta figures this out, in his way. He can't be Alex, but he can do the one thing that matters. He can protect the people Alex left behind. When the alien assassin races back to his ship to broadcast the news that the last Starfighter is alive and fighting, Beta steals a truck, tells Maggie to jump, and drives it straight into the side of the ship, smiling a small grim smile as he does it, the only genuinely human expression we've seen on his face. He says, quietly, to an Alex who is nowhere near to hear it, "You owe me one." The transmission cuts off mid-sentence. On the Codon bridge, Zur hears only the last Starfighter is, and assumes the word that follows is dead. He orders the attack, and that mistake born from Beta's sacrifice is what gives Alex and Grig the element of surprise they need to win. The copy who couldn't be Alex saves Alex's life by being exactly as willing to die as Alex was. The last Starfighter ends where it begins, in the trailer park. Alex lands his ship right there in the parking lot. The neighbors come out, and Grig tells his mother what her son did. Then Alex asks Maggie, who has been through considerably more tonight than anyone should ever have to be, if she'll come with him. She says yes. Her grandmother says, "Be sure to write," or whatever it is they do up there. And Lewis, watching the whole thing, walks straight to the arcade cabinet and starts playing. That ending carries weight. Alex isn't staying to be celebrated. He's going back to help rebuild what was lost, to find others like him, to make sure that the next time the frontier falls there's someone there to defend it. He's not going because he's the hero, he's going because he's the only one who knows how. Maggie goes because she chooses to, because love, the film says without quite saying it, is not about waiting at home. Sometimes it's about climbing into the ship. Put this one on tonight. Not for the nostalgia, not for the computer-generated spaceships, which are exactly as polygonal as you remember, but because it understands something about the nights when life hands you a closed door and a high score at the same time. It understands what it feels like to be good enough, and to have that turn out to be both a gift and a burden. And it is, quietly, one of the most honest films ever made about why people leave the places they love, and what they carry with them when they go. What's one cult sci-fi film from the 70s or 80s that deserves this kind of deep dive? Drop it below, and the best suggestions might become future videos.